Hello, my name is Annie Wintels, and I will be talking to you today about reflecting LGBTQ+ representation in YA literature in your library collection. To start out, I just want to go over a few learning outcomes. So this presentation will highlight the importance of representation for the LGBTQ+ community, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. This population needs to be represented through diverse and inclusive YA, or young adult, LGBTQ+ literature. 2. Participants will gain a broad understanding of the terms privilege, intersectionality, and cultural pluralism, and why it's important to understand these social dynamics and how they play out in YA literature. Participants are expected to bring this knowledge back to their home institutions and implement the knowledge. 3. Presentation's effectiveness will be measured in participants' abilities to use the resources provided to find literature accurately representing the LGBTQ+ community to add to their library collection. Participants will learn to acknowledge the problematic nature of erasure within current LGBTQ+ literature with regards to race, gender, ability, sexuality, etc., and the responsibility for librarians to conduct corresponding diversity audits within their LGBTQ+ YA literature collections, along with implicit bias workshops. Finally, participants will learn to understand the difference between queer literature and more traditional LGBT literature, with an attempt to include both of these categories in their collections while addressing community needs. The graphic below is an attempt to show intersectionality visually by showing that all oppression is connected, but whenever more than one of these oppressions are stacked onto each other, the weight starts to get heavier. So we're going to start to talk about the need for diversity within LGBTQ+ YA collections. It's necessary to include YA literature representing the LGBTQ+ community in a library collection because this community deserves to see itself in literature. Additionally, allies and other community members deserve to learn more than just the single story, as Adichie mentioned in her 2009 TED Talk. And we must dive into cultural pluralism, as Naidu and Dalen 2013 reference, so that we're able to see the vast richness of a culture instead of seeing it as a monolith. Young adults may be facing multiple oppressions at once, which YA LGBTQ+ literature must reflect. Blackburn and Clark and Nemeth, 2015, break LGBTQ YA literature into categories of homosexual visibility from the 70s to 80s, gay assimilation in the 90s, and queer consciousness and queer community, that is from 2000s to present. So when we talk about queer consciousness, we're talking about intersectionality, which is the ability to recognize privilege and oppression and how these intersecting systems of power affect the most marginalized. The term was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, and we thank her for that. So libraries are safe spaces where teens can discover resources, and that's why it's very important that librarians recognize privilege, oppression, and intersectionality and how literature plays into all of this. Evidence and results. 71.3% of youth in the U.S. have reported hearing homophobic slurs, according to Wood and Kistler and Miller 2016. Many LGBTQ+ youth struggle with multiple discriminations in addition to homophobia, for example, sexism, racism, ableism. The pie chart to the right shows gender disparities in LGBTQ+ YA literature, while the graphic below it shows the prevalence of LGBTQ+ people of color that is not represented enough in library LGBTQ+ YA literature or in the publishing industry. The chart below, in the third column, shows lack of representation for different sexual identities within the LGBTQ+ YA literature collections. These graphics highlight the fact that while LGBTQ plus people face discrimination, some people in the LGBTQ plus community also face other societal discriminations. And that's what we're talking about, intersectionality. However, much of the current LGBTQ plus YA literature centers on white, cisgendered, able-bodied, gay, young men, according to Garcia 2013 and Shen 2016. LGBTQ plus literature can promote conversation, address stereotypes, and create a safe zone of kindness and acceptance within classrooms, according to Wood, Kistler, and Miller 2016. And this research tells us that we need more representation in LGBTQ plus YA literature to be an outlet for those LGBTQ plus young adults who have intersecting identities that need to be represented. In conclusion, though libraries are at many times at the forefront of inclusion and diversity within society, there is still a dire content requirement not being met in current YA LGBTQ plus collections. 2. Librarians must continue to work to diversify their LGBTQ plus collections with the resources provided. 3. The price of not diversifying their collections means that LGBTQ plus youth will not see themselves reflected in literature, and allies will not learn about diversity of the LGBTQ plus experience. I would like to include a quote by Dr. Rudine Bishop from 1990. Quote, "When children cannot find themselves in the books they read, or when the images they see are distorted, negative, or laughable, they learn a powerful lesson about how they are devalued in society of which they are a part." Finally, I would like to help us put these theories to practice. Librarians must continually learn about the resources available for them and continually update their own collections. Good web resources to start with include We Need Diverse Books, Goodreads lists, Human Rights Campaign book lists, Defending Intellectual Freedom, LGBTQ plus materials in school libraries, as well as the GLBT Roundtable Toolkit provided by the ALA. Repeated diversity audits can also help librarians in assessing what they have and what they need to have, as outlined in the toolkit provided by the AASL. Additionally, keeping a list of LGBTQ plus books that have been problematic stereotypes that are not appropriate for library collections should be tracked. Also, having staff complete implicit bias tests helps individuals understand where they might be biased in adding books to the collection and to help counter that. In conclusion, this is a continuing process, and I hope that you all learned something from this presentation. And the highlight for me and for you and for all of us is that we all must continue to learn. So if you have any questions or any comments or ways that I could help improve this presentation, please email me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thanks.